When we were very young, me and my friends, if we have a breakup, we might say something like, you just will find someone better, he wasn't for you, and then we expect ourselves or each other to get over it. And then I think sometimes we have like flashbacks or we were triggered. So I'm not sure, thinking back, if we actually completed the stages of grief after a breakup in a relationship. My friends and I were just, I would say, out of ignorance, might have practiced some form of toxic positivity on each other and ourselves. Welcome to another episode of I Feel Fine.
Really? After watching our first episode, a viewer asked us to talk more about toxic positivity.
Wow, this topic. I mean, I've been hearing about this for a number of years now. I've been personally on the end of toxic positivity, and I've heard others experiencing that as well.
It's quite prevalent in our culture to tell people to just cheer up, move on, or just forget about it.
Yeah, and then good vibes only. There isn't sufficient space for us to have other kinds of emotions except positive, especially if someone opens up to you or needs a space to talk about other kinds of emotions and they get shut down.
I think there's no universal definition of toxic positivity. We're not against positivity per se. It's okay to be positive, have optimism, have hope. But when negative emotions arise, that word that you used, shutting down, was quite apt. It's about telling people to shut down their negative emotions and dismissing it or denying their pain or their suffering and being closed to those kind of emotions.
Yes, sadly, most of the time, they are mostly words, and of course, coupled with their expressions and their reactions. You know this saying,
Sticks and stones can't break my bones.
exactly, you read my mind, but words
Can't. Or can.
No!
Okay,
There's this phrase that
sticks
and stones
may break my
bones.
but words can't.
Yeah, but words can't hurt me. Yeah, I strongly not a believer of that.
Yeah, actually, words can really crush a spirit.
I feel sticks and stones and words can hurt.
Definitely.
And sometimes they both come together.
Oh dear, that's quite terrible.
Yeah, I mean but then today we're talking more about the words, and it's kind of great to categorize whether expressions and behavior, are they actions as well? I mean, they are not sticks and stones, but I think the manner, the responses after one person opens up to someone to talk vulnerably and authentically, and then met with a toxic positive response.
Yeah, I mean, when you said that, I remember an incident where I was opening up to an older relative about some things in the past that I had felt hurt about, and he responded by saying, "Don't mind me saying, but I think you're wallowing in self-pity." And I felt really stung by those words. I actually felt really hurt, and it brought me many steps backwards in our relationship because I just didn't feel safe to open up to him anymore.
I see. I'm so sorry to hear that. In fact, I realized that quite a number of times, toxic positive responses usually starts with "don't mind me saying." Usually "don't mind me saying," and then I would actually be all on guard and kind of think that I would actually mind what they're going to say.
Okay.
Yeah, this is the pattern that I realized. It's almost like they think after saying that sentence, the statement, they think it's a pass to "don't mind me saying." And the worst thing is no one waits for that response, Sometimes I feel like I want to try, hang on, I might mind.
Okay, that's
I mean,
new.
it's like, why would someone say "don't mind me saying," and then expect someone to definitely not mind? And the worst thing is we don't even know what they're going to say. So how are we going to not mind?
Yeah, exactly.
something saying?
So I'll be all ears to hear what they have to say because I don't even know what they're going to say.
Yeah, but I've learned over years and many experiences that the moment they say that, I actually let my guard up.
Oh, okay.
Okay, to see the good in it, I think they may really mean well.
I
when they
totally
say that.
agree. Yeah.
But they can mean well and I can still mind because what they're going to say might really hurt me.
I think there is value in being optimistic and seeing the bright side of things, but when somebody else is opening up about their pain or difficulties, that might not be the right time to impose that positivity on them.
Exactly. I feel that there's nothing wrong with saying something positive. However, I think that they have to be responsible for whatever they are saying that could have caused repercussions and consequences to somebody else who is opening up to you. Most of the time when someone opens up to you, most cases, I think they have to gather enough courage to talk about a really painful thing about themselves that's happening to them, something vulnerable. And I think we have to treasure that. We have to treasure that enough to hear them out, validate, be present, acknowledge, listen before we think of putting our opinion across.
Yeah, I think it's twofold. Usually, if someone is confronted like that, they may feel defensive, and that may be their way of countering any perceived accusations against them. Another aspect could be perhaps this is this person's general worldview that we should just chin up and be resilient, be strong, forget about the past, leave it behind.
I think it might have worked for them, at least in their opinion, but that's the thing. Often people think it worked for them, it worked for others. They give cookie cutter advice, but we're not cookies, And I actually began to doubt whether did it really work for them, because I came to realize that some people thought it worked for them, but they could be just bearing their emotions, they could be repressed, not processing them, and it comes out other ways. It may have come out in ways that even hurts others. So the person might think it worked, but it might not.
All this comes from a really good place, usually good intentions. Most people want us to be happy. Sometimes we also want ourselves to be happy. I think toxic positivity, there are two aspects. One is us imposing it on other people, and then sometimes it's also imposing it on ourselves. It's not allowing ourselves to have negative emotions, is forcing ourselves to dust it off, move on. We don't even accept ourselves to be in that valley moment. But life is not just about mountaintop experiences. We do have valley moments, and allowing ourselves to walk through that process, or even walking with someone else in that valley moment, I think that is so therapeutic, that's powerful.
I think there's shame in being in valley moments, especially if no one wants to be there with you. It's isolating. I mean, I can understand why someone would practice toxic positivity on themselves if they don't know the value or see the value of processing those emotions. And it's lonely. If everyone is expecting you to chin up and get well soon, it triggers, at least for me, a performance-based attitude. That I better progress in a time frame. If not, I don't know, are people going to stick around, or am I seen as a failure? If I'm feeling down, is there a time limit? Do people get impatient? Yeah, so slowly over the years, I began to see the value of processing these emotions, and if needed, I have no qualms of processing with a professional. I think there's a stigma for going to a professional service to process these emotions, but I think it's a very brave thing that despite if there's a stigma, take that step for yourself. And for me, I feel that it will help the community around me, my friends and family who supports me. They are not trained or skilled. I mean, it's like a difficult topic, a balancing act, to think about their capacity to support me. And I thought, why not bring it to a professional who are skilled and equipped? It helps me and it helps people who care about me. But this is not to say that we shouldn't get support from friends or family. I think it's a community, and everyone can have a role to play in a healing journey.
It's definitely complementary, having that professional help and having that community support. I think they go hand in hand. They are not mutually exclusive. But I totally understand about the stigma of going to a professional like a therapist or even a doctor. there's so much.
Our counselor.
Yeah, our counselor. There's so much fear. There's also misconception. So yeah, that's really what this podcast is about, to normalize conversations around mental health. You know, early in our friendship, Jenny Faith, I remember you texted me about feeling, I can't remember exactly the emotions, but it was maybe sad or down. And then I remember texting you a one-liner, and you told me it didn't help, and that was a shock to me.
I think I might have told her off.
Yes.
I can't remember. Maybe she's being kind by just saying I told her it didn't help. But yeah, I think that period of time, it was really like a low point for me. And I'm not sure that she texted me a one-liner that is faith-based or
Yeah,
a
it was
positive line.
faith-based, and I thought that because the one-liner had helped me, it would automatically help you, and it was really a wake-up call that sometimes these one-liners do more harm than good.
In my experience, it can go both ways. I think they can be receptive and say, oh, that didn't help. And as you can see that I'm quite outspoken to tell her, I wouldn't really just tell anyone. I ascertain whether, it's if I want to tell that person that it didn't help. Because imagine like if I tell the person it didn't help, and that is already on the premise that I'm being hurt, and the person adds on more and say, you're just too sensitive, or, cheer up, like good vibes only, I would even feel more hurt.
Yeah, there's definitely a risk there.
Yeah, so I want to comment that she obviously took it well, and that's why we're still friends now. Earlier, Jenny was saying that the positive statements and liners may not be bad. I agree with that. It's just that there's a lack of acknowledgement and validation of the negative emotions. In an authentic, real journey, there would be different kinds of emotions. And we really truly want to support a friend. We could walk with the person in all emotions and not just the positive ones. Many, many years ago, where no one talks about toxic positivity, but people literally are okay with that, I was interacting with a group of friends that were faith-based. So out of kindness and out of good intentions, they would tell me like a verse that would encourage one another.
Must
Like
admit, I was
almost-
part of that community too.
And it's great. I believe in those verses. I believe in those faith-based statements. And I did feel instantaneously at the moment better. But I did not realize I did not process my emotions, my other complicated negative emotions that is required for a more complete healing. But I don't really blame them now. Because I can see that they meant well, and we all just didn't know better. That's what this podcast is about. It's awareness. So that was a very long time ago, and I learned and educated myself, and also saw the value of processing other emotions that comes with it. For example, 5 stages of grief, and perhaps some resources say 7. And I think it's important to go through the stages. And sometimes I heard that they do not even have to go through a certain order, and you could go back to another stage to process it again, to complete the stages of grief. So instead of going to the last stage and say, oh, I'm fine, the person is in heaven, and things like that, I think it's important to allow space for someone and ourselves to go through different stages of grief.
I really resonate with this grief model because it doesn't only apply to losing a loved one. It can even apply to facing a betrayal from a friend, or even losing something else that is very dear, like a job position. And then there's no timeline to it. Stages of grief cannot be rushed, and they go in and out of different stages. And when you thought that you have hit this milestone, sometimes you may find yourself back there. And that's when it's important not to apply the toxic positivity to ourselves, to say that I should have completed it by last year or by a certain timeline, because the fact if we are still feeling very sore about it or feeling deeply about it, it shows that there's still something deeper that we still need to process.
Yeah, so that explains why when we were very young, me and my friends, if we have a breakup, we might say something like, you just will find someone better, he wasn't for you, and then we expect ourselves or each other to get over it. And then I think sometimes we have like flashbacks, or we were triggered. So I'm not sure, thinking back, if we actually completed the stages of grief after a breakup of a relationship, or like you say, an end of a friendship, or any form of relationship, could be even like a job relationship. So I mean, now it brings back memories, what I've done wrong, or my friends that I will just I would say, out of ignorance, might have practiced some form of toxic positivity on each other and ourselves.
Yeah, we say just get a new boyfriend and you'll get over the past one. But this replacement or this distraction or find a new job, a new hobby, it doesn't mean that it erases the sting of the past. So it's again the first episode when I mentioned that creating new memories is so powerful, but there may be a place to process the old ones, especially if they keep coming back as flashbacks.
When you talk about it comes to the good place, even if I had imposed toxic positivity on myself, I can imagine that I just wanted to be better and I did not have the knowledge nor awareness to know the value of going through negative emotions. It felt painful, hurtful, and it also like I had no one that told me or would like to support me in that. It seems like every time I was happier or I made progress, like I feel better, they were happy, they were supportive. So with that kind of environment, I feel even more encouraged to just get better now because everyone is happy and I'm happy. I feel fine, really? So I think that's what also essentially our podcast is about. It's about awareness of your emotions, yourself, and how if someone say they are fine, are they really fine? Or are there expectations in the community or cultural expectations to seem like to look like you're fine, to appear that you're fine?
Yeah, that's a really great point. I think there's a lot of hiding and masking because a lot of these emotions are just not socially appropriate. It goes back to our first episode where we didn't feel that we have the leeway to appear down at Christmas time and actually maybe the whole year round.
Recently, I posted a question on Instagram to ask if anyone have experiences with toxic positivity, and I actually have a few responses, and to me they were heartbreaking. I feel like really sad for them that they experienced this, but it's also not really surprising.
Please note that what we have shared does not constitute medical advice. If you need professional help, do seek it out, and if it's an emergency, please proceed to the local hospital.
Thank you for watching I Feel Fine.
Really?